Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the book, Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if Your Life Depended on It, by Chris Voss with Tahl Raz. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The New Rules. Voss opens the text by challenging the traditional assumption that negotiation is a rational, intellectual process. Drawing on his experience as a lead FBI negotiator, he argues that the academic models taught at institutions like Harvard often fail in real-world, high-stakes scenarios because they ignore human irrationality. He posits that feeling, they discovered, is a form of thinking and that effective negotiation is actually emotional intelligence on steroids. The central actionable lesson is that negotiation should be viewed as an information-gathering and behavior-influencing process, rather than a battle of arguments. A foundational tool introduced is the calibrated question, which involves using open-ended queries starting with how or what. By asking, how am I supposed to do that? You stop the counterpart's aggressive momentum, buy yourself time, and give them the illusion of control because they are forced to solve your problem. Voss explains that humans operate via two thought systems, System 1, fast, instinctive, emotional, and System 2, slow, logical. Crucially, System 1 guides the rational thoughts of System 2. Therefore, if you influence a counterpart's emotional mindset through framing, you modify their logical response. The concept of tactical empathy is the centerpiece of the book. Voss defines it as listening as a martial art, where the negotiator recognizes the counterpart's perspective and vocalizes that recognition to gain access to their mind. Actionable negotiation is described as communication with results, and Voss insists that conflict is an inevitable part of all relationships that must be navigated correctly, rather than avoided. He establishes the mantra that you get what you ask for, you just have to ask correctly. The chapter also emphasizes that yes is often the most dangerous word because it is frequently a counterfeit dodge used to end a conversation. Instead, negotiators should aim for "that's right," which indicates a breakthrough in understanding. Finally, Voss advises readers to get over their aversion to negotiating. Negotiation is not about browbeating or grinding someone down. It is simply playing the emotional game for which human society is set up. Preparation is critical, and the book provides a framework for active listening and psychological investigation intended to yield a 7-to-1 rate of return on time saved during implementation. Chapter 2. Be a mirror. This chapter focuses on establishing rapport and quieting the internal voices that distract negotiators from truly hearing their counterparts. Voss notes that most people approach negotiation preoccupied by their own arguments, leading to a state of schizophrenia, where no one is actually listening. The primary actionable tool for overcoming this is active listening, which requires making your counterpart's words your sole focus, to disarm them and make them feel safe. Voss identifies 3 essential voice tones. The positive, playful voice should be the default, as its light and encouraging attitude increases mental agility in both parties. The direct or assertive voice is rarely used and often creates pushback. The most powerful for high-stakes moments is the late-night FM DJ voice, deep, soft, slow, and reassuring with a downward inflection. This tone communicates that you have everything under control and prevents the counterpart from becoming defensive. The core technique of this chapter is mirroring, also called isopraxism. In the FBI context, this is the simple act of repeating the last 3 words, or the critical 1 to 3 words, of what someone has just said. Mirroring is described as a Jedi mind trick because it signals similarity and triggers a bonding instinct. It encourages the counterpart to elaborate, providing you with more information without your having to ask a specific question that might incite defensiveness. To use mirroring effectively in a professional setting, Voss provides a 5-step process. 1. Use the late-night FM DJ voice. 2. Start with "I'm sorry." 3. Mirror. 4. Wait in silence for at least 4 seconds to let the mirror work its magic. 5. Repeat. Silence is a vital component of this tactic, as it forces the other party to fill the gap with more information. Voss concludes with the mantra, assumptions blind, hypotheses guide. A great negotiator does not commit to assumptions, but uses the interaction to reveal surprises and test hypotheses rigorously. By slowing the process down, you calm the environment and build the rapport necessary for a successful deal. Chapter 3. Don't feel their pain, label it. Chapter 3 introduces labeling as a way of validating and influencing a counterpart's emotions. Labeling is the vocalization of your recognition of their perspective. When you label a fear or an emotion, brain imaging shows that the activity shifts from the amygdala, the fear center, to the rational thinking parts of the brain, disrupting the raw intensity of that negative emotion. This is a shortcut to intimacy and an emotional hack that builds trust. Actionable labels must be phrased as neutral statements of understanding, almost always starting with, "It seems like," "It sounds like," or "It looks like." Voss warns against using the word "I," such as "I'm hearing that," because it puts the focus on the negotiator and makes the counterpart more likely to get their guard up. Once a label is thrown out, the rule is silence. You must be quiet and listen, inviting the other person to reveal themselves. Labeling is used to neutralize the negative and reinforce the positive. Voss explains that people's emotions have two levels: the presenting behavior, above the surface, and the underlying feeling, the motivation. Effective negotiators label the underlying feeling to diffuse obstacles. For example, if a counterpart is angry, acknowledging that anger directly can make the problem go away. Voss advises that the fastest way to establish a working relationship is to acknowledge a negative dynamic and diffuse it. A more advanced tactic is the accusation audit. This involves listing every terrible thing your counterpart could say about you before the negotiation begins. By labeling these accusations in advance, stating things like, "You're going to think we are a big, bad prime contractor," you take the sting out of their arguments and clear the emotional path for a deal. The goal is to clear the road before advertising the destination, because the reasons why a counterpart will not agree are often more powerful than the reasons why they will. Tactical empathy is not about being nice or agreeing with the other person's ideas. It is about understanding their world, so you can increase your influence within it. Chapter 4. Beware, yes, master, no. In this chapter, Voss argues that negotiators often fetishize yes, while demonizing no, which is a mistake. No is the start of the negotiation, not the end of it. Hearing no provides a counterpart with a sense of safety, security, and control. It allows them to define their space and protects their autonomy, which often makes them more willing to consider your proposal afterward. Voss notes that people will fight to the death to preserve their right to say no, so giving them that right from the outset makes the environment more collaborative. Voss identifies three kinds of yes: counterfeit, confirmation, and commitment. A counterfeit yes is a trap used to end a conversation or obtain more information without intending to act. To distinguish between these, a negotiator must use their skills to inhabit the counterpart's world and see exactly what they want. Actionable persuasion is not about logic or browbeating. It is about the other party convincing themselves that the solution you want is actually their own idea. There are several ways to trigger a no to gain momentum. One technique is to intentionally mislabel one of the counterpart's emotions or desires, forcing them to correct you with a no that reveals the truth. For example, "It seems like you really want this project to fail." Another is to ask a no-oriented question, such as, "Is now a bad time to talk?" which is more effective than asking if they have a few minutes. Voss also provides a specialized email magic technique for when you are being ignored. Send a one-sentence email asking, "Have you given up on this project?" This plays on loss aversion and the fear of abandonment, typically provoking an immediate reply where the counterpart explains their position. Ultimately, you should never be needy for a deal and must be ready to walk away. The chapter establishes the rule no means no go. If the other party refuses to say no, they are likely indecisive or have a hidden agenda, and the negotiation should end. Chapter 5. Trigger the two words that immediately transform any negotiation. Voss argues that the most powerful breakthrough in a negotiation is not yes, but the two words, "that's right." To reach this point, negotiators must use the behavioral change stairway model, BCSEM, which consists of 5 stages: active listening, empathy, rapport, influence, and behavioral change. Actionable progress is made when you move beyond mere compliance to a gut-level epiphany where the counterpart feels truly understood. The primary tool to trigger this response is the summary, which is the combination of re-articulating the meaning of what was said, plus acknowledging the emotions underlying that meaning. Paraphrasing plus labeling equals summary. A critical distinction for any negotiator is recognizing the difference between "that's right" and "you're right." Voss warns that "you're right" is a disaster and a common social lubricant used to get a bothersome person to stop talking and go away. When a counterpart says "you're right," they have not necessarily agreed to your position or committed to action. They have merely provided a counterfeit affirmation to end the interaction. Conversely, "that's right" signals that they have assessed your summary of their world and pronounced it correct of their own free will. Negotiators should strive to identify and emotionally affirm the world according to the counterpart. This process creates unconditional positive regard, which lowers defensiveness and opens the door to mental and behavioral change. Voss demonstrates that using a summary to reflect a counterpart's passions and challenges can turn a skeptical or cold adversary into a trusting collaborator. For instance, by summarizing a superior's unspoken motivations, such as the need for a headquarters ally, a negotiator can reveal black swans and achieve goals that previously seemed impossible. Ultimately, "that's right" creates a stealth victory, where the counterpart feels they have assessed and approved the outcome, leading to better implemented agreements. Transitioning from seeking "yes" to seeking "that's right" allows for a breakthrough from deadlock as it breaks down barriers without the feeling of having given in. Actionable negotiation is not about a performance. It is about gently guiding your counterpart to discover your goal as their own. Chapter 6. Bend their reality. This chapter focuses on the psychological tools used to frame a negotiation and shape a counterpart's perception of fairness. Voss establishes the mantra that no deal is better than a bad deal, urging negotiators to avoid the common trap of compromise. He posits that splitting the difference is like wearing one black and one brown shoe, a result that satisfies no one and is often the worst possible outcome. Instead, negotiators should use framing to make their offers appear more attractive. This is based on prospect theory, which shows that people are statistically more likely to act to avert a loss than to achieve an equal gain, a concept known as loss aversion. To effectively bend reality, negotiators should follow several actionable steps. First, anchor their emotions by starting with an accusation audit to prepare the counterpart for a loss, which inflames their desire to avoid it. Second, let the other guy go first in monetary negotiations whenever possible, as neither side has perfect information, and you may find their starting offer is higher than your closing figure. If forced to name terms, establish a range using a bolstering range where the low end is your actual target, which adjusts expectations without triggering defensiveness. Another vital tool is pivoting to non-monetary terms, offering things that are cheap for you, but valuable to them, to make a low price acceptable. When discussing numbers, use odd numbers, such as $37,263, because they feel like the result of thoughtful calculation and are harder to negotiate off of than round numbers ending in 0. Finally, surprise with a gift after an extreme anchor rejection to trigger the norm of reciprocity. Voss also emphasizes the power of the word fair, noting it is often used as a defensive jab. "We've given you a fair offer." Negotiators should counter this by mirroring the word fair and labeling the counterpart's readiness to provide supporting evidence. Conversely, using fair early on as a commitment to transparency, "I want you to feel like you are being treated fairly at all times," sets the negotiator up as an honest dealer. By mastering these framing techniques, negotiators can turn perceived insults into victories. Chapter 7. Create the illusion of control. Voss argues that effective negotiation is about coaxing, not overcoming, and involves getting the counterpart to do your work for you. The core tool for this is the calibrated question, an open-ended query that removes aggression from a conversation by asking for help. By avoiding closed-ended questions that start with can, is, or are, you force the other side to pause and think about how to solve the problem. These questions suspend unbelief, the active resistance to what you are saying, and give the counterpart the illusion of control because they believe they are the ones framing the answers. Actionable calibrated questions should primarily start with what or how. Voss explicitly warns against using why because it is inherently accusatory in any language and triggers defensiveness. The greatest of all time, calibrated question is, how am I supposed to do that? This specific phrasing acts as a gentle, graceful way to say no and invites collaboration by forcing the counterpart to look at your constraints. Other essential standbys include, what about this is important to you? What is the objective? And how would you like me to proceed? A critical aspect of this strategy is self-control. Negotiators must regulate their own emotions to remain rational and avoid the hostage mentality that leads to lashing out or defensiveness. Voss advises negotiators to bite your tongue, to avoid knee-jerk reactions, and to ignore the amygdala's urge to flee conflict. Furthermore, negotiators must realize there is always a team on the other side. If you do not reach past the counterpart to influence the deal killers behind the table, you have a hope-based deal rather than a strategy. Calibrated questions can be used to unearth these hidden motivations, such as asking, how does this affect the rest of your team? By directing the counterpart's energy toward designing a solution that serves your goals, you move from a showdown to a joint problem-solving session. Ultimately, the guy listening has control because he is directing the conversation while the talker reveals information. Chapter 8. Guarantee execution. Chapter 8 focuses on ensuring that an agreement leads to actual follow-through, establishing the rule that yes is nothing without how. Voss explains that negotiators must be decision architects who design the verbal and nonverbal elements of a negotiation to ensure execution. To guarantee buy-in, use calibrated how questions such as how will we know we're on track and how will we address things if we find we're off track. By making the counterpart articulate implementation in their own words, you convince them the final solution is their idea. A key tool to ensure sincerity is the rule of 3, which involves getting the counterpart to agree to the same thing 3 times in a single conversation. This is done by varying tactics. First, get a commitment. Second, use a summary or a label to get a "that's right." And third, use a calibrated question regarding implementation. Voss also introduces the 7-38-55% rule, which states that only 7% of a message is words, while 38% is tone of voice and 55% is body language. Negotiators must pay close attention to tone and nonverbal cues to spot incongruence, which often signals that a yes is counterfeit or the counterpart is lying. Further actionable techniques include the Pinocchio effect, where liars tend to use more words and more third-person pronouns, him, her, it, they, to distance themselves from the lie. Negotiators should also pay attention to the usage of pronouns to determine a person's actual authority. Those who use I, me, and my are often less important, while decision-makers tend to use we, they, or them to keep their options open. To humanize yourself and gain the Chris discount, use your own name to humanize the interaction and create forced empathy. Finally, Voss suggests a multi-step no strategy to get counterparts to bid against themselves, starting with, how am I supposed to do that, and progressing through gentle refusals like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't work for me. This method exploits the norm of reciprocity and wears down the counterpart's resistance without a blunt no that would shut the conversation down. Chapter 9. Bargain hard. This chapter transitions from psychological rapport building to the brass tacks of haggling. Voss identifies 3 primary negotiation styles: analysts, accommodators, and assertives. Analysts are methodical, hate surprises, and view silence as an opportunity to think. They require data-driven arguments and time to process. Accommodators prioritize the relationship and free-flowing exchange. They may agree to things they cannot deliver to avoid conflict. Assertives believe time is money and focus on getting things done above all else. They need to be heard before they can listen. The Black Swan rule is to not treat others the way you want to be treated, but the way they need to be treated. To handle bare-knuckle bargaining, Voss introduces the Ackerman model, a systematized offer-counteroffer method. The process has 4 steps. 1. Set a target price. 2. Set the first offer at 65% of the target. 3. Calculate 3 raises of decreasing increments, 85%, 95%, 100%. 4. Use empathy and no questions to get the other side to counter before raising your own offer. 5. End on a precise, non-round number like $37,893 to give it weight. The diminishing increments convince the counterpart they are squeezing every last drop out of you, which juices their self-esteem. Voss also advises on how to take a punch by deflecting extreme anchors with calibrated questions like, "What are we trying to accomplish here?" or pivoting to non-monetary terms. For punching back, he suggests using strategic umbrage, real anger channeled at a proposal, not the person, to wake the counterpart to the problem. Additionally, messages can be used to set boundaries without escalation, such as "I feel blank when you blank because blank." Voss stresses a ready-to-walk mindset, stating that if you cannot say no, you have taken yourself hostage. Negotiators must maintain a collaborative relationship, even while setting limits, ensuring the adversary is the situation, not the person across the table. Chapter 10. Find the Black Swan. Breakthroughs in negotiation are created by identifying black swans, which are unknown unknowns, unexpected pieces of information that sit outside regular expectations. Voss hypothesizes that in every negotiation, each side possesses at least 3 black swans that would change everything if discovered. To unearth these, negotiators must move beyond known knowns and shackle themselves to assumptions, instead adopting a beginner's mind and listening for truths behind the camouflage. Finding black swans provides leverage, which is the ability to inflict loss or withhold gain. There are 3 types. 1. Positive leverage, the ability to provide things the counterpart wants. 2. Negative leverage, the ability to make a counterpart suffer based on threats and loss aversion. 3. Normative leverage, using the other party's own norms and standards to advance your position. Voss warns that negative leverage should be used sparingly. Because of the paradox of power, the harder you push, the more resistance you meet. A primary way to access the secret negotiation space is through understanding the counterpart's religion, their holistic worldview, or reason for being. By positioning your demands within this worldview, you show respect and gain results. Related to this is the similarity principle, as people trust those they view as being in their in-group. If a counterpart seems crazy or irrational, Voss suggests they are likely ill-informed, acting on bad data, constrained, having things they can't do, but can't reveal, or have hidden interests unrelated to the merits of the deal. Actionable steps to uncover unknowns include getting FaceTime, as email hides nonverbal cues, and observing unguarded moments at the fringes of formal meetings, such as the first few minutes or brief interruptions. Ultimately, black swans are leverage multipliers that transform negotiation from a move-counter-move game into a 3-dimensional adaptive process. Embracing conflict through tactical empathy allows negotiators to uncover these values without strong-arming or humiliation. Thanks for listening. If there's a book you'd like me to cover next, let me know in the comments. I love hearing your suggestions. Have you read this one? If you have, please tell me what you thought about it in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or was it just okay? If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe for more full book summaries. See you in the next one.